Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening today, what we can expect moving forward and all that good stuff. So if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., I do share my thoughts with my members every single day the market is open. For instance, this morning, obviously pretty much 6 hours ago, you can see I shared that Tesla broke that 284 high, which I was talking about for quite some time, how I'm bearish below, bullish above. And I mentioned how because of that break that the bulls have regained momentum essentially, and obviously Tesla had overall ended up going higher until obviously at the end of the day last like 5 minutes sell off. But nonetheless, right, those are the kind of things I'm constantly sharing with my members. There's a lot of updates. That was just from this morning. All of these were today. So again, that's it. If you're interested, link is below. Press the join button. $3 a month gives you access to the Tesla tier, Tesla updates, technical analysis, options flow, etc. as the market is trading every single day. $5 also includes NVDA, and then $6.99 USD includes non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks that I'm constantly talking about, like Reddit lately, Pepsi, I'm actually talking about it, AMD, etc. So if you're interested, link is below. Pretty cheap in my opinion, but nonetheless, jumping into it, NVIDIA. Tesla closing the day down because I had that 5 minute or like last 10 minute sell off. It was in my head, but up actually a nice 3%, just above 3%, closing just shy of $285 per share. So what does this mean moving forward on Tesla stock? Is it finally ready to break out? Is this finally it? Are we finally going to be seeing potentially even 300s next week, right? Is that finally the play? Well, let's go over it and I'll give you my personal thoughts below. So what happened today, right? Obviously, in this kind of market, short-term predictions, especially when I can't update it again until the next video, are difficult, right? Because at this point, it feels like one message from Trump, good or bad, because believe it or not, this pump, Trump. This sell-off, Trump, right? And I also update my members. For instance, when here was a reason, right? He just, towards the end of the day. But anyways, so the point is the fact that, I mentioned how below this kind of 278 to 280, and especially below 280 kind of 4-ish, I'm bearish, right? And I was, obviously, there's absolutely no reason not to be. But obviously, we broke above that high this morning, right? In the first hour candle, we broke above that high. We broke both of these. We gapped up above it entirely. And then we ended up obviously regaining momentum. I started telling my members how this low down here now is a very strong bullish swing low. So as long as price is above this low down here, the bulls should have momentum now, right? And of course, we continued up. Now, the interesting thing is this. So there's two things that are important here for Tesla next, right? And tomorrow could give us a better clue, but the two things are as follows. Number one, you can absolutely make an argument that we finally broke out. Now you can obviously take a look at this scenario back here and be like, but why is it not, how is it not different than this scenario? Like, what if this just ends up being this? It could be, right? We don't know for sure yet, right? This is why I said tomorrow will be important, because we should find out if it's going to be this or it's going to be this, right? Or at least give us much better hints as to what's next. But the main reason then the difference is because number one, well, the MACD, it's bullish. The MACD has flipped bullish. Keep in mind, when this crossover up here happened, the MACD was still bearish. It hasn't crossed over, nothing like that at all. The MACD now is crossed over bullish, something we didn't have back there. That's a good sign. And on top of that, at least so far, this didn't last very long. It ended up getting collapsed back down pretty quickly. However, this one you can see lasted much longer above the breakout. So those are pretty good signs. Now it's not guaranteed, but those are good signs. But again, this is all assuming this is in an actual descending bull flag. In my opinion, what's a safer play, and in my opinion, this just gives you an early look. Between this and the other perspective, which I'll go over now, I think the second perspective is better personally, and I'll explain why, right? Because again, when it comes to bull flags, when it comes to these kind of trend lines, whether it's like this, whether it's like there's some level of subjectivity behind it, right? It's subjective-ish, right? What isn't subjective is the fact that you simply, it doesn't matter what lines you use. There is, because you can make arguments that maybe I should be drawing this line differently. Maybe this one should be a little bit different. You can make these kind of arguments when it comes to trend lines, technically speaking. What you can make arguments is the horizontal support levels and resistance levels. You can't make any arguments about that, right? There's no argument to be made that, yeah, whenever we came down to the low 270s, support, right? Absolutely zero argument to be made about that. However, there's also zero argument to be made about these levels up here. Every time we've come up anywhere closer to 290s to as high as 295, smackdown. And is this another smackdown, right? So that's why I'm saying this kind of gives you potentially like early premature-ish look, if you will, as to maybe what to expect, but it's not as concrete, in my opinion at least, as the horizontal levels. I personally believe horizontal levels are almost always better than trend lines, personally speaking, because again, there's virtually zero subjectivity behind it. So with that being said, what does that mean, right? Well, that means the fact that, well, this is clearly a resistance level. But what also is the fact that we need to break it, right? We need to break it. So what Tesla needs to do is clear this zone. And this zone essentially starts at pretty much about $290 per share to as high as $295 per share. That $5 range right now is like the bullish territory. Pretend like, you know, we're walking into a cave that we want to bypass to get to the next stage. The next stage is 300s. But the cave is full of bears. This is the bears' hideout, right? This is where they're attacking you. And the question is, of course, do we have enough resources, ammunition, whatever, to get past this cave? We obviously didn't here, we didn't here, we didn't here, and we didn't here. Do the bulls have it this time? That's the main question. And this is why these kind of trend lines and this 1 hour MACD bullish crossover can give you early signs. They're not perfect. Obviously, nothing is perfect. The only way to truly know for sure is actually doing it, right? Ultimately, actually getting that breakouts, right? Anything before that, you know, we're just predicting. And predictions, well, it's a prediction. Could be right, could be wrong. At the end of the day, that's how it works, right? But this, obviously, a break above 295 will be better confirmation, like by a decent amount. So I just want to make that very clear. It's a very, in my opinion, important distinction. But nonetheless, tomorrow, the point I want to make is the fact that I want to see what happens with this breakout. Can the bulls essentially hold this kind of mid-ish $280 per share, maybe slow bleed down closer to like 283 roughly, but around the 285, give or take about $2? That's the level I would like to see the bulls hold tomorrow. That's the level I want to see the bulls hold tomorrow and see what happens with that, right? Because that will be this little pivot point right here, which we broke above. And then, you know, maybe we get a small bleed. And then as long as that holds, I believe that, you know, Tesla should start looking pretty nice moving into next week. What else is a reason why I believe that this time might not be what this one is, at least as of right now? Options flow. Options flow looks pretty damn bullish, right? Throughout the day, we had a lot of bullish flow, right? Towards the end of the day, a lot of bullish flow coming in for tomorrow, coming in for, you know, the rest of this month, right? You can see some short-term call options come in. But the most important thing, there was a substantial amount of very aggressive call premium coming in. 8.3 million calls. By the way, they're all June 6th, 300 strike. 8.3 million here, 8.4 million, 7.7 million, 6.3 million. I think that was the last one. There was one for 1 million over here for next week, 1.7 million over here for next week, also 300 strikes, right? A lot of call premium is coming in. Like people are seemingly loading the boat. Now, I've seen some evidence that at least some of those have been sold for a loss, right? When Tesla, essentially in the first hour, when it had this massive spike, that's when they were coming in, and then it sold off in the first hour. I saw some evidence that some of those were being sold, but not, from what I understand, not all of them. Regardless, though, that's something worth noting, right? And then let's go over to the daily chart. So the daily chart is, you know, pretty interesting as well. You know, the MACD is still bullish. RSI looks pretty decent, right? It's above the, you know, the kind of the little moving average. You can see that yellow line. Like, it's not looking bad. Like, I look at this daily, and other than the fact that we're, you know, getting an obvious resistance at this like 290 to 295 range, which I expect to break. I expect it to break. That's my current expectation. Obviously, I could be wrong. You know, for instance, if you enter a trade here, you know, your stop loss could be pretty much below 270, arguably, and that's, you know, not a horrible trade. But see, I like the increase in volume as well. That's not bad, but it's still a little bit on the lower end. But I do expect it to break, personally speaking, right? Because, you know, again, the technicals still look pretty solid. This still just looks like a very obvious bull flag. Again, whether it's a bull flag the way it's like this, whether it's a wedge, whether it's a sideways horizontal bull flag, you know, with the upper and lower resistance points and supports, right? Whichever we want to look at it, it doesn't matter. They all roughly have the same principle behind that, where massive move up, sideways consolidation on declining volume into a continuation. That's usually how these play out. Nothing is perfect, nothing is guaranteed, or else it'll be too easy. But that's just how this theoretically should play out, and that is what will lead us, you know, in my opinion, at the very least 310. Like that's like bare minimum in my opinion 310. If we break 295, like 310-ish, I'd be shocked if we don't at the very least see 310, but my main target will definitely be higher, right? I think you know, kind of 320s will be my kind of main-ish target, to where, you know, about closer to 360 will be my kind of more greedy target. Those would be my main targets for sometime this month, probably later, the second half of this month, but really depends on how quickly this, of course, happens, right? But that's kind of the main perspective on my eyeballing on Tesla right now, right? That's my overall analysis, I guess you can say, right? There's really not too much more to say. I mean, the weekly still looks pretty decent. I mean, you know, the weekly is just undeniable in the sense that, you know, you can see several weeks in a row, this area just, you know, it's just so evident that this was an area of resistance, right? It was so obvious. And now the weekly is taking this level down here, you know, it's kind of like 260s, if you will, to like the 270s-ish range. And these two weekly candles are doing the exact opposite, right? It's so clear cut that it's taking these ranges and turning them into support, which was a resistance, after this large weekly candle closing at the highs breached this range And now, you know, I feel like it's pretty obvious, at least in my opinion, right? There's really not much more to say to it other than that. And the final thing I'll talk about is this nice little stochastic over here with specific settings. But nonetheless, you can see if you zoom out, anytime this thing has come down to the bottom end of the spectrum like it is now, right? You can see over here, we're pretty much right here, right at the bottom. And it's, well, that's where we are now. But obviously comparing it to previous instances, this was around the bottom over here. Now it's not perfect, but the point is the fact that it was closer to a bottom than not. And then we rallied. Last time it got, you know, anywhere around these levels was all the way down here, and we rallied. Then we got somewhere around here, also got a rally, you know? So we're around those areas too. Like there's a lot of things pointing to the fact that Tesla wants to go higher. Again, I don't know how quickly. Could be tomorrow. Could be early next week. Like I don't like trying to predict times. I don't like saying, oh, it'll be tomorrow, you know, tomorrow or the day after. I don't like saying that. I don't know how long it'll take. But that's why I don't trade or I don't play games with time. Because I don't know. I don't know how long it'll take. Could be tomorrow. Could be Monday. Could be next Friday. Maybe it's the week after that. I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is the fact that once eventually it breaks 295, that should be that trigger to essentially go higher. And that's kind of the way I'll be looking at it. I mean, plain and simple. It's really not much more to say. 53 million confirmed bullish flow on Tesla stock. So yeah, it's not looking too shabby. Let's see how tomorrow plays out. Let's see if the bulls can continue this kind of, you know, momentum into tomorrow, or at the very least not drop it. Not necessarily continue. I don't think the bulls need to break out tomorrow. I don't think that's like a necessity. But what I definitely would like to see is them continuing to hold this sort of 283, 4, 5-ish, like that $2-ish range. I want them to continue holding that. That to me will be important, because if we lose that, yeah, you know what? The momentum could stall and we could potentially definitely start, you know, making our way back down lower. And this could be another false breakout and another massive bull trap. I don't think it is, but it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the chart tells us. And that's what it would tell me if we start losing those levels and getting back down below, and especially going down below 280 again. That would not be a good sign for bulls. But as long as we hold those levels, there's potential. There's absolutely potential. And this finally might be it. And we might be truly gearing up for it, potentially even next week. But again, I don't like giving exact time frames because I don't know exactly when. But yeah, that's about it. So yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.